Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of JKL Media. Peace be with you.
And also with you.
We are in our final discussion, I guess the last episode of our discussion of Midnight Mass. Mm-hmm. So it's been an interesting ride. Mike Flanagan has taken us on quite a journey, and to bring us to
the promised land,
our conclusion, yes, to the land of hope and dreams. If you're in Springsteen, but maybe not. Lou's going to lead us, so go for it, Lou.
All right. So here we are, folks, at our fourth episode, our last episode of reviewing Midnight Mass, and appropriately enough, Book 7 is called Revelations, and there are quite a few in this episode. And it's funny, I may probably Jesse's going to reference this, but we just finished Babylon 5 podcast where we talked about the episode Believers, and they had these series and this final episode share a lot of similar themes. But what I really like about this episode is something that I've always taken to heart from a 1984 movie by John Carpenter called Starman with Jeff Bridges and Karen Allen. And there's one line in it where Jeff Bridges says to someone else talking about the human race, he said, "Shall I tell you what I find beautiful about you? You are at your very best when things are at their very worst." So I think this episode of Midnight Mass does this as well. So let's talk just in general, without specifics. Karen, were you satisfied, or how did you react? How do you feel about the final episode of this series?
Okay, I'm going to say a lot of things in a short amount of time. I was unsettled by it, vindicated in my hatred of Bev. Also, one of the things that we've talked about is momentous things that happen to you doesn't change who you are. Your personality is still the same. And this was really the embodiment of that. If you're a bad person, you're a bad person. If you're a good person, you stay a good person. And I feel like that was the theme of this whole series was, who are you when something catastrophic happens? And this episode in particular embodied that. And I have to say that this is something I wouldn't admit normally. I sobbed. I watched it twice. Watched it last week after we discussed it, the previous episodes, because I wanted to watch it right away. I wanted to, right? And then I let it sit for a little bit, and then I watched it again. And I sobbed when Erin and Riley are sitting on the couch in her last throes of living. I'm assuming that's like where he saw the victim of his car accident. This is the same moment in Erin's life where she sees important things in her life when she's dying. Man, I needed my box of Kleenex. That's all I'm saying. That was a very impactful scene for me. And it answered a lot of questions, but it also left us with questions, which I appreciate as well.
Okay. Jesse, who's not a horror person, is I'm curious to find how you felt about the resolution to this series.
Boy, did Mike Flanagan stick the landing. Just a really, really well done miniseries. And without getting into specifics, a perfect ending. Yes, I love the fact that I talked about the last episode that when I was in high school, I didn't understand how you could be a hero or could be a victor if you end up dying or losing or something, right? Like, it was the Crucible or something. And in this case, there were people who, even though they ended up dying, stayed true to themselves. And so there is, as always, take a drink, Bruce Springsteen. The lyrics to The Promised Land are, "I've done my best to live the right way. I get up every morning and go to work each day. But your eyes go blind and your blood runs cold. Sometimes I feel so weak, I just want to explode. Explode and tear this whole town apart. Take a knife and cut this pain from my heart. Find something itching for something to start." Just, we saw who everyone was. And our heroes remained heroes to the end.
Villains.
Our villains remained villains. And our priest, the Monsignor, was a little naive actually a lot naive. And even he had a redemption moment that I thought was really beautiful. And my brother texted me. Remember, I had told him about it.
Right.
And he said he found it, he says, oddly uplifting, the music at the end and seeing how they met their fate.
You mean Near My God Today? Is that the? Yeah.
I understand why you wanted us to watch this. I've understood, but now watching the whole thing, I absolutely understand why you're like, you know what? I think they will like this.
Do you want to expand upon that a little bit? Why?
Well, it's such a well done story, and it's a clever story. Like, I can't remember the exact Bible verse, but there is something in the Bible where they say, Jesus talks about Satan knows biblical scripture and uses it in a perverted way. Like, he will use the words of the scripture in a way to manipulate people. And the idea that Monsignor, Father Paul, is saying, every time an angel of the Lord appears, people are afraid, to justify that we have this incredibly sacrilegious scene of this ancient vampire in priest robes. Everyone's shocked, and he's manipulating, like, no, think about it. Every time in the Bible, and they were so afraid, right? Like the shepherds, the Christian story, Mary being afraid, all these different times in the Bible when an angel appeared, the people are afraid. So it's normal that you're afraid that this vampire, this
angel,
not an angel of the Lord, but is there. And so it's a good story is a good story, whether it's a romantic comedy, whether it's a thriller, whether it's a horror, whether it's just a straight political drama. I love stories. Like, I don't know if either one of you have read the book Holes or watched the movie Holes, which is a young adult.
Yes, I've seen the movie.
It is such a well adapted story. Like, things that you don't think are going to connect do.
Right.
And it's such a well crafted. This is so well crafted that after the fact you go, wow, I see what they did there. And damn, this was an entertaining ride.
Good. And the horror elements didn't throw you off too much?
No, not at all.
Okay, cool.
Now, Linda watched this with me.
Right.
And she feels guilty as a more devoted Catholic. She feels like, she goes, I liked it. I don't know if I should have, though. I feel a little guilty that I liked it.
Yeah, well, I think that's intentional. So let's start looking at how some of these pieces all fit together. And probably the most revelatory one was the relationship between Father Paul, Millie, and Sarah. Yeah. So let's talk about the relationship between those three. And because to a large part, that relationship between Father Paul and Millie is what drives this whole story. So, Karen?
Yeah, I think that was the underlying thing that caused him to do all this. I mean, he says it even in that last episode, that I came back and I brought all this for you so that we can be together. And it was heartbreaking to see that she said, I was never going to leave my husband for you. It wasn't going to happen. And he's upset by that. But I think somewhere deep down, he knew what they were doing was wrong. The fact that they had an affair when he was supposed to be celibate was wrong. The fact that they had a child together while she was married was wrong. And she said, I wasn't going to ruin 3 lives in order to be with you. And I think that illustrates, she would have never wanted him to bring this to the island. Never. I don't want this. I don't want to live forever. I want my life to be a life. And I thought it was interesting that they chose to end their lives as a family. And Sarah didn't. Sarah was ready to leave the island and leave everything behind. And if she could take her mother, then fine, but it was already past that. But after she died, and she refused to drink his blood, which I thought was very on brand for her. No, thank you. And he was distraught by that. But also, I think he understood that was her nature to do that. And them to take her to that bridge to wait out everything. it was a great ending to their storyline. And I thought it was very interesting to see. And there were moments in this episode where Paul straddled that line. You know, he wanted to do good, but he ended up just causing this horrible thing to happen. So was that supposed to happen, or was that supposed to happen? You know, you're seeing it from both sides, that he just wanted to save some lives and be with the woman that he loved and his daughter, but he also ended up killing every single person on that island except for a couple people. So it was interesting to see where his story ended up. I understood from all of the episodes, once we found out that he was actually the Monsignor, that's what he was doing, because he was making it a point to go see her, to see Maggie, and to give her communion, which was the thing that was going to heal her. So it wasn't a shock, it wasn't a surprise, but it was a pleasant ending as far as how their ending could have gone, if that makes sense at all.
Yep, totally. Jesse?
I watched this twice as well. And the first time I was very confused who was waking up in front of the church. I didn't recognize who she was. And only as I watched the episode, that's who that is. And she just looks so young, right? And I do think I thought of Karen last time we talked about, you had wondered, why are they hiring all these young actresses and aging them? And so I thought of that. So Mildred Alexesso, I think she was really very good. Did not see that Sarah was the child of Priest and Paul and Mildred. I thought that was a nice twist, and I did not see that coming. And it was a very beautiful end, right? Where Sarah refuses, she spits out the blood, like, no, I am not going to become this thing. And for Mildred to say, you know, she always loved that little bridge. And they all three go there, and he takes his collar off and throws it. And yes, he was very naive, that thinks that this is my second chance of having a life, having a family that I want. I guess he'd seen so many. What is the comedy Shadows? I haven't seen. It's on my list to watch.
Where they live in the shadows.
Yeah. So maybe he'd seen too many episodes of those things, that, oh, okay, vampires can have a fun life.
Great show and great movie, by the way.
Yeah. So he's to have them just sit there and just calmly wait for the sun to come was just a really beautiful ending. And I do think he was incredibly naive to think that we could be this, that I'm going to go out and we're going to give new life to everyone through this angel. And I just think he manipulated his mind that, okay, I'm going to pretend, or I'm going to believe that this is for good, because selfishly I have a chance to have the family that I never had.
Yep. Yeah, I think he wanted it to look like he had big motivation. And really his motivation was just, I want to be with the woman I love.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so let's talk about, I want to save Erin till the end, because obviously she has the most impactful scenes, but let's talk about Riley's mother, Annie. She's become separated from her husband, so it's her, Erin, and a couple others escape to a house where eventually Bev and the handyman catch up to them. And in order to give the others more time to escape, Annie goes out and confronts Bev. And that scene was so cathartic for me, and I'm sure for you too, because we've been waiting for somebody to tell Bev off, and that was the scene. So Karen, what did you think of the Annie's arc?
That was so satisfying. When Bev is assuming Annie will be on her side, and Annie just says, I've been waiting so long to say this to you. You're not a good person.
Yep.
Why would God like you more than anyone else? Why? If you're really a Christian, you better think about that. And Bev wasn't having it.
Right.
Bev she's all in. So of course God loves her more, because she is more devout.
Right.
So there was never going to be a consensus there, but I thought it was really crafty of her. Not only did she get that off her chest, but she also delayed Bev and Sturge so that the others could get out of the house. And I think a lot of that was, look, I know I'm going to die. My husband's already turned into this monster. I want to save someone else if I can.
Right.
The kids at the very least. And so as one of her last human acts, to tell off Bev was just the sweetest, most wonderful candy you can get in a show like this. Right. It was so good.
Yeah.
And Bev was just, this was her episode to be the most hateful she could be.
Yeah. I love the fact that she's like, well, isn't that special? You know, almost like the church lady.
The church lady.
Like, oh, that's unkind of you.
Yeah.
You know, and it was so satisfying to hear that. And then jumping ahead where she runs into her husband again, right? And they're like, did you? Nope. It's all my blood. It's all mine. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Wasn't that funny how that's a subversion of all the other shows and stuff where you see someone with blood and their response is, it's not mine. It's from someone else. I'm not hurt.
Yeah.
But this is, I'm not evil. It's all mine.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I thought
good
go
catch.
ahead. Sorry.
Good catch, Karen. Yes.
Yeah, that is really good. And Annie and Wade, right, they look at each other. I didn't forget who I was.
Right.
You can still be proud of me.
Yeah.
And she can be, they're both proud of each other. And they're like, okay, we're just going to face this. There's no sense of trying to save themselves. It's like, because they admit, I feel the hunger. I know that sooner or later, it's almost as if someone who's an addict, because once it goes back to AA, right, that was part of this, they know, and they like, I can't live with myself being this way. Right now, I can live with myself, and I want to die with my morals and my inner self the right way.
Right.
And so very, very, very loving, very strong, and she's the one who starts the song, and by historically they say that's what the band played on the Titanic. That is not necessarily a true, but that is that Nearer My God to Thee was the folklore that's what the band played as the Titanic was sinking. And so once again, I want to applaud the music in this series is just exceptional.
Right.
Yeah, on point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I also liked, as long as we're touching on Ed as well, he's sure come a long way from the early episodes where he's taciturn. He doesn't want to talk to his son. He wants to be this good Christian and eschew all that kind of thing. And then in the end, he understands that being good isn't just being religious. Being good is just being good. And I think his wife is a huge impact on that. And also Riley is a huge impact on that. That he sees that Riley is struggling and trying to be a good person, but he doesn't want to take communion because he feels like he's being hypocritical.
Right.
And to see Ed in that position in the last episode was really great, I think.
Yeah, and not to jump ahead, but one of the things I loved is Bev's smugness of, well, if they've been coming to church and taking communion, they're going to be fine, right? Because they're even if they're attacked, they will rise again. Right. If they haven't been coming to communion, oh well.
Yeah.
They deserve what they get.
Yeah, they deserve what they get. They were not part of the God's chosen.
Exactly.
Flock.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And she even turns away someone when they could have shelter.
Yeah.
Well, Sturge, why did you save him? He's never I've never seen him in church.
Yeah. And as in, well, I thought we talked about this, and then there's that great moment where Father Paul says, no, this church, we're all open. Yeah. We are. This is the house that's free to all. But of course, something else is happening.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so that Bev Annie scene was just so delicious, as you mentioned, Karen. But it's a microcosm of the whole series that you're like, this is a really bad moment, but at the same time, man, am I ever really feeling really good right now
Yes.
because of what's going on? And that's what this whole series is. It's pushing you in two directions, and it's amazing. I especially love like you touched on, Karen, when Annie tells Bev, God doesn't love you more than anyone else. You aren't a hero, and you certainly aren't a victim. Which because whatever you say about Bev, she's very intelligent. So, and that which makes it worse because she's so smart. She should really know better than to behave the way she is. And that's maybe one failing in the series. We never really get the backstory of what made Bev what she was in the series, which is good. But they don't have to explain everything, but it would have been kind of nice to see some sort of catalyst as to what caused her to grow up the way that she did. But Bev is pretty unflappable, and she tries to come back at Annie and says that you weren't a good parent because Riley is a murderer, but that doesn't faze Annie. She just says that God loved Riley just the same as he loves her. So such a wonderful cathartic moment.
How much did Bev hate that?
Yeah, for sure.
No, Riley was different.
Yeah.
I mean, she hated that.
Yeah, she really does.
Yes. So every series has to have a villain, of course, and we've already talked about her quite a bit. With Bev, the story has the possibility to open up beyond the island because she's got a vision of releasing this onto the mainland and to the rest of the world. So the rest of this episode is more or less entangled with people trying to stop her and her trying to carry out her final plan. So we get a lot of the confrontations happen outside the church in the community center. Of course, we get the police officer there trying to set gasoline or fire to everything, and then of course Aaron comes in. And why don't we talk about that whole sequence of events, Jesse?
There is this. I don't understand, and I talked about this last episode, how, like, what are you going to do? Like, if you go out, sooner or later, you're going to run out of people to feed on. So I don't think they're thinking that far. Bev wants power. She wanted power because she forced everyone, she pressured everyone to take the settlement. And then because you got that settlement, you should kick in some to God so that you can have this rec center that you don't need. But it's a tribute to her. Like, she's like, oh, look what I did. And so her plan, right, is we're going to have the boats and we'll go to the mainland and then we're going to spread God's gospel. And she's thinking that if Father Paul is the leader, she's going to be the co-leader or the chief of staff, so to speak. So she's all excited about this power. And that great scene where the house is burning and he's like, hey, we need to stop this. And she's like, no, just let it all burn. And I love that came back to, pardon my candor, bite her in the ass, right? Like it just, good decision, chief. Because that arrogance of getting rid of every building, and just the church is going to be there and the rec center, and we will be fine once the sun comes up. And then no, because our heroes, Sarah doing that. And I love that scene that as they're walking out, right, the family, they knock it over like, okay, this is it. And then our other hero, the young man, ends up choosing his father and choosing his Muslim faith. Ali. And I know you're going to get to that, but what a beautiful scene of them praying together, facing the sunrise is just beautiful.
Yeah. And I feel like the show's all about dichotomies.
Yeah.
We see them, and I'm just going to mention this again, we'll talk about it in depth, but they're on the beach praying, and Bev comes to the same beach, tries to save herself by burying herself in the sand. But also you get the dichotomy of Bev and Sturge setting fire, and they think it's just going to be enough buildings so that they can survive, just enough so that they can get in this structure. And then our good guys do the same thing, set everything on fire. So they both are doing the same thing, but Bev's doing it so that only her people can survive. The good guys are doing it so that no one will survive. And I feel like also that some of Bev's motivation was she wanted to be the second coming.
Yes.
And if she could start the rapture and still be on Earth to get her power, then she'd be the second coming. And I think that she was thrilled when Father Paul was was taken down in her eyes so that she could step up and take control of the situation. I think she hopped right on that train.
Yep.
Well, if you're not going to be on my side, then be gone. You don't get to come in their X center either, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we're going to take this to the mainland. I'm going to start a revolution. She wanted the world to burn and her to be the savior.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
Again, that highlights that she thought she was better than everyone else, that God loved her more than anyone else. And again, it's that Jesus second coming. I have been called to this greater power, and I lord over all. Who she lets in to the rec center and who she doesn't. She gonna do the same thing on the mainland. She gonna go to churches.
Absolutely.
And you just know that they have to stop her. And I was still worried about that even at the end of the episode, because there are unresolved things that happen that you think, well, we might still be in danger.
Yep.
So yeah, where Father Paul had motivations that seemed innocuous, hers were definitely power related.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
it's often in history that a cause started by someone is then taken by somebody else and subverted for their own means, and that happens in this series as well. So that was a very pertinent storyline as well for the Bev character. All right, I've been saving the good one for the end, and that, of course, is Aaron. And my Lord, the callback to their previous conversation with her and Riley about what happens when you die really comes back in spades in this episode. And it's one of the most striking images in the series, I think, is her pulling the vampire angel back to her.
Yes.
Just floors me when I see that. I mean, her other scene when she's screaming and the credits go black is very powerful, but in a more dramatic way. But this one's much more, you feel it more in your heart. So let's talk about Aaron, Karen.
Aaron.
I've been waiting to do that all series.
Have you? Yeah, I think she knew she was going to try and sacrifice herself to stop this. There in the back of her mind somewhere, she thought, if I got to go out, I'm going to try and take him down or take whatever down.
Yeah.
And I love that you see, and again, it's that MacGuffin hanging on a lamppost thing where she gets the knives out and hands out knives, and everyone's like, what good are knives going to do? They're just going to raise again. And she says, well, it might be a couple minutes. And it turns out, and I'm hoping, because they said that her stopping the angel, and again I do air quotes, the angel from outrunning the sunrise, and let's hope he did, right? That's the couple of minutes that worked into why she had a knife, is him not being able to outrun the sunrise. And we see Lisa saying a couple of minutes, and it feels like they're really telling you a decision comes down to a couple of minutes and it can change the outcome of something. So her passing out the knives and saying might just be a couple of minutes really, really hits home as you watch the rest of the episode. Yes, they all make that decision in the end. Sarah spitting out the blood, that's just a split-second decision she makes. Ed and Annie deciding they're not going to give in to this hunger. Again, a decision they make in just a couple of seconds. Sturgeon Bev torching everything. Again, just and her turning people away from the inn, as it were. I feel like people and Ellie siding with his father. Again, another, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to set fire to things as well, and I'm going to go with my dad. I just love that it comes back and you pick it up as, yeah, okay, she meant a couple of minutes. It really did work out that way. It's very poetic. And that scene, like I said earlier, that scene on the couch just broke me. It was so good. And the acting was just, I don't know, beyond compare almost. They were so good together.
Yeah, I thought that was great, right? She's cutting his wings and he notices, right? And she pulls him back like, no, just don't you, isn't my blood, isn't my blood tasting so well?
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't you? And he forgets all about it.
She's literally embracing death.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Literally.
then, and then we get that great scene with the two kids in the boat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to beat the sunrise. Will he make it?
Mm-hmm.
And they go, look at the way he's flying. There's no way. So the assumption is,
did he?
Yeah, the assumption is he doesn't, right?
Right.
That she sacrificed herself to, he won't be able to go anymore. She stopped that evil.
Mm-hmm.
And then because of all the other work they've done, they've killed off the evil that's on the island.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it'd be interesting, I'm sure it's available somewhere, to watch her original monologue when she was talking to Riley about after death.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of her death, listen to the new monologue, because compare the two. Absolutely. I had not seen Kate Segal in anything. I know you told me she's Mike Flanagan's wife. I am now interested in, I have all the Time Traveler's Wife on my DVR, so I haven't watched her in that, but I'm very interested in seeing what else she's done.
Right.
Because she's a very interesting actress.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That comment about comparing the monologue here with the one that she had with Riley is, I like to do that too. The big change is that she realizes that with life, that there's no longer an end or a beginning, just a now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's simply a dream that I think is my life. Every time, she tells Riley, admitting she will forget this dream just like all the others. There is no time. There is no death. Life is a dream. It's a wish that is made again and again into eternity. I am that I am. And then with that, she's gone. So she's basically like saying, we are stardust, we are gold. That's the song snippet that comes to my mind there.
Well, I was thinking of Harry Chapin's All My Life's a Circle, sunrise to sundown, right?
Yeah.
Really, really nice.
And if you want to talk in religious terms, ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And also one of the themes in this series is stars.
Yes.
Because we see the light changes when you become this vampire-y thing. Mm-hmm. They talk about Riley talks about stars. She talks about stars. There's also an episode where they're walking on the street with the candles.
Yep.
And they show them from above.
Yeah.
And they look, and then they go back up to the stars and it looks the same. And so that's putting in your mind, we are also stars.
Mm-hmm.
That she outlines in this episode. It was a nice theme to see through the whole series as well.
Right.
And I like the little special effects showing you how things look different once you had been turned.
Yeah.
And that was very interesting.
And again, that view of the stars when you've been turned is beautiful. But its source comes from a very evil place. Yes, so exactly. you got that conflicting tensions going again.
Mm-hmm.
So and we've touched upon all the other characters, but as we hit the climax and the sun is starting to rise, we get all these threads: Hassim and Ali, Millie and Father Paul and Sarah, and then of course the Aaron scene, and then Annie and her husband are singing the "Near to My God to Thee," and then the sun comes up, and Bev, I don't know why she waited till the last seconds to try to dig a hole. I thought she would have started earlier, but I guess she was so arrogant that she thought something would happen that would save her. They all meet their ends, and I just love how you're rather quickly going through a whole bunch of story threads all within a short span of time, but they all feel satisfying because they've all been carried to that moment when the sun comes up. So that I really love that. I remember once when I was watching Lost, and I don't remember the particulars, but there's a sequence where there's like, I think 3 groups of people or something, and they're all traveling to the same point. That cuts from one group to the next group to the next group, and you're just going, wow, they're all going to meet up, and there's going to be this big dramatic moment. And this cutting between the various story threads brought that back to me. So I thought that was really, really well done. And then, of course, the juxtaposition of all these vampires basically singing "Near God, My God to Thee." This just those conflicting emotions are there again. Very powerful stuff. And then we have Harrison and Lisa, the 2 kids, Riley's brother, and Lisa, who's the girl that was are in the boat, and the island's on fire, and then all this ash is falling. It's like snow. Again, another beautiful image, right?
she puts her hand out to catch something.
Yeah.
And then he holds it.
Yeah. And then,
oh my God.
Yeah. So good. And then they both see the angel flying away, trying to fly away with its wings all ripped up. And they're saying, well, do you think he's going to make it? And they says, well, I don't know. We're like 30 miles from shore. I don't know if he can get there in time, but we don't know for sure.
Right.
And then at the very end, Lisa says, I can't feel my legs. So you're left with an open ending. I don't know if that was you've been referring to all throughout this episode, Karen, but it's left
there's a few things.
It's left for you to decide whether or not this angel makes it or not. So thoughts on the final scenes of this series, Karen?
Yeah, there's a few things that were like that for me. Does the angel make it to the mainland or wherever he needs to go to hide?
Mm-hmm.
Literally, he could just find a place that has a cave or something. So that was worrisome.
Mm-hmm.
How do Warren and Lisa make it somewhere? Are they going to get caught by the ferry when the ferry comes back?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to just make it to the other island and wait it out there? You know, where do they go from here? We don't know that. We're hoping they make it. As far as I can see, they're the only two that make it, right?
Yep.
Except Hassan. What happens with him? He never took communion.
Oh,
he's not dead.
I assumed he did take communion.
No, but I assumed he died from his wounds.
Okay, that could be too.
Oh yeah, that's right. He didn't, but yeah, he died. Yes, he did.
So
in fact, you see him as they're praying him.
Yeah, he falls over.
He falls off to the right, which means he died. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thought that could be because he's upset about his son, but I'm almost glad he died because that would have been just wrong.
Think on that. He's going to be the only body on the island.
Yeah.
Sarah too.
Because
she didn't drink completely, right?
Right. She didn't. But yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know if she burned up with.
Right.
But
that was.
But there would be remains of her at the very least. Yes.
Exactly, and everyone else was ash.
Yeah.
But still, it was very powerful to see Hassan on the beach. And again, I think that it's like was that beach facing the canoe or not? But if it was, then we see those two boys from completely different places, both doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
He decided to side with his dad, and Warren gets Lisa off the island. And Lisa, again, she goes and gets the gun that paralyzed her in order to help save themselves. I mean, mind-blowing, right? And it's because of her conversation with Joe in his trailer where she sees the gun, that powerful scene we saw. She goes back because of that to get the gun. There's just so many things at the end that were resolved and also made you think. And so, I mean, I'm like, thank God they dissolve, because that means that the island is a loss completely and no one's alive at the end. And I was very upset that everyone died except for the two kids.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also happy that we got to see Riley again, and that maybe Riley and Aaron are together or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I was glad to see him again in this episode. I would have liked to see him with their parents too, but I understand that they had to be out there, and just satisfying, but also unsettling, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the ending, that just like on the episode where Riley burns up and we cut to black and we hear Aaron screaming.
Right.
In this case, we're in the boat and there's this beautiful music and then cut.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which shows you that the people singing are now burned up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very strong storytelling.
Yeah.
And I think a perfect way to end is Lisa saying, I can't feel my legs, because it shows that we had talked about this earlier. Sarah had said, I think your body would cleanse itself if you stopped getting this poison.
Right.
And that shows that because she had not taken communion she had stopped, that her body was going to heal herself. So she would no longer have the gene sitting there that waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
She would heal herself. And so on the plus side, she's going to live, but on the downside, right, she's now going to be in a wheelchair again.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it is only just me. I would love to see how you explain what's going on when the two kids show up on the mainland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And hey, the island's all dead. Sorry about that. Yeah, we can't really go into it though.
And then I assume that the authorities will think that everyone died in a fire, right? That because of the buildings, everything being burned. And that was a great image of from afar, mm-hmm. showing the whole island on fire, almost like the pits of hell.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking again about Hassan, because he's the only body that's left, and he's been shot. I'm so afraid that the narrative is going to be that he went crazy and killed everybody.
Yep.
And that's a terrible legacy to this story. So yeah, that's very disturbing.
And if they find, on the off chance Sarah's body is there, and they find her neck bitten mm-hmm. and slashed, what are they going to think about that?
Yeah.
And what are the kids going to say? I mean, they're going to be traumatized by this.
Yeah.
Are they going to talk about, I'm assuming they're not going to say there are vampires on our island.
No.
But what did they think about? We're going to have to say something. So hopefully they would exonerate Hassan, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe they'd say that Bev went crazy and torched everything. And
yeah,
I would hope so. That might be her final comeuppance, is her being blamed for this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Lou, I've not done any research for this.
Mm-hmm.
Has Mike Flanagan appeared on podcasts talking about this? Is there interviews where he discusses the series as a whole? Because I would be very interested in that.
Yeah, for sure. There are. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll have to go and look at that.
She comes from a Catholic background, so he talks about that quite a bit. And this is a pet project of his that he was trying to get done before he did all the other things that he's done. So it was only because of the success with Hill House and Bly Manor that Netflix gave him the go ahead to do this. So yeah. So the best kind of horror, and I've mentioned this off the first episode, is to me horror at its best. And I think what's shown in this episode, and even that last Babylon 5 episode that we did, The Believers, is death is a terrible thing to us, because nobody wants to die. But the eternal damnation of your soul is the worst fate that any person could face. And this show shows or highlights that quite strongly here, that all the people in the end that die are in various states of, I don't know what the proper term would be, salvation, or I don't know what the right word is escaping me, but they're in a state where their soul is either going to be eternally damned or they're going to be redeemed. And sadly, there's a group in the middle that really didn't have an idea or understanding of what was going on, and they're just like the innocent victims. And so I don't know if their souls are going to be in purgatory, or because there's that one guy that Sturgis, the handyman, so, he was a good guy, he was always nice to me, and that guy didn't go to church, and the guy says, I think I killed my son. And these people have no idea what's going on. They're just swept up in it. So I don't know what happens to their souls, but powerful stuff.
Yeah, and the whole idea, right, of I did some stuff too.
Yeah.
Right. They're very interesting.
Yeah. All right. Any last thoughts?
Sorry, me? Can I talk for a second? I'm sorry.
Sure, yes.
I talk.
Sure.
I know
go
I
ahead,
talk too
Karen.
much, but
no.
No, that's why you're here.
I want to talk about the angel.
Okay.
The angel / vampire.
Mm-hmm.
He's played by Quentin.
Tarantino.
Boyclair. Quentin Boyclair, and he's somewhat of a Doug Jones in that he does a lot of prosthetic work.
Oh, okay.
And I've mentioned Legion before. He played the devil with the yellow eyes in Legion, which is a completely different character than this.
Mm.
Also evil, though. And he's been in a lot of things. Shadow King. He's prolific with special effects, makeup.
Okay.
And you should go and look at some of the things. He is a nerd. What you would think of as a nerd.
Okay. One of our
skinny
people.
Glasses, just hawkish features.
Yeah.
And to see him as he's perfect for this kind of job, in that he's got a pointy face, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yep.
And it's really good for prosthetics because you got a lot of stuff to work with there.
Right.
So yeah, I really liked finding out more about him because he's not a main character in this show at all.
No.
He is the pivot point.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not bad, he's not good, he is.
Yeah.
And to see who was behind it and everything was super interesting.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, for sure. And visually he looked really cool too. Like especially when he had the robes on.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Jesse, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say this was very, very interesting that the idea of taking the mass, the blood and body of Christ, this you'll die and be rose again.
Yeah.
There is so much Catholic
beliefs.
Yeah, beliefs and dogma,
doctrine,
in there.
Yeah.
That is really well done. I and very, very different. And so I can only imagine, because I remember like Kevin Smith, when he did Dogma, there was a lot of really people unhappy in the Catholic Church with this, that feels like he was truly being sacrilegious. I can only imagine the Catholic Church on this show.
I'd be curious. I've not seen any reactions from them. Like you mentioned, your wife felt conflicted about it, so I'm if not outright wondering if she should be against this show. So that's interesting.
Yeah, she was fascinated by it and could not stop watching, but was at the same time going, "Wow," So yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting that, again, I've made this point several times, is that how you can take something that a particular creed or doctrine that's purpose is intended for good use and have somebody else take it and ride a Trojan horse with it and they use it for something perverted.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I think, then for last thoughts, I'll just say that I think that this is the best of his 3 series that he's done for Netflix. Mike Flanagan just has such a, not just his movies, projects work on all 3 levels for me, like the acting, the writing, and the imagery, and you can include the soundtrack and everything, all the filmmaking aspects. He's got a great director's eye for making scenes, heightening the drama or the horror or whatever. He's got that signature horizontal vertical slide that he loves to use. But this guy really gets horror, and for he's the type of horror creative person that I like to follow, because he gets beyond the archetypical slasher body horror type of stuff, and really dives into the characters, and this whole thing about what looking after your soul and whatnot is what I really enjoy. So I'm glad that you both enjoyed it. I was sure that Karen was. I was worried about Jesse, but I'm glad that in the end that you both found it a worthy journey. So any last thoughts, Jesse?
So I see that he has the Midnight Club coming up and the Fall of House of Usher.
Yep.
And so I love the idea that, similar to, if you go back to classic times, John Ford had a set of actors that were his actors troupe, right? That he would use. And I love the idea. I'm a huge Friday Night Lights fan, and so I'm so happy to see QB1 doing such really strong work and well done. So
was it a different performance for him in this?
It's very much a different performance, yes. And though you see a little bit of that character's, a little bit of it. So yeah, I was surprised how much I enjoyed this.
Cool.
And I will, because we have so much to watch. There is a blessing of TV to watch now.
Yeah.
I do not know if I will go back and catch up previous ones, though I am interested in maybe Dr. Sleep and Jared's Game, because the Stephen King connection.
Yep.
But I definitely will, when the new series comes out, I will at least sample.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I agree with you, Lou. I think this is his best work, at least out of the Netflix series. This is mythological based. And we have 2 mythologies here. We have the Catholic Church. I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it's mythology.
I was just going to say, well, Karen's going out there.
It is. They have a set of beliefs and all that. And that's essentially a mythology in a wider term. And then the vampire mythology. So he's marrying the 2. And Hill House and Bly Manor were both what I term ghost stories.
Yeah.
I mean, better than what do you tell around the campfire, but they're based on ghost story type horror. And I think this was just stronger in that you had things to base this on. You had a real life connection to some of the stuff in it.
Yep.
Whereas in the other things, it's literally ghost stories. And they were good. Don't get me wrong. They were great. I would say, Jesse, if you have time, if you decide you have some downtime, at least watch Hill House.
Okay.
Because that is really, really good.
Okay.
I feel like it's what the others wanted to do. The movie The Others. Okay. But didn't do.
Yeah, Hill House is a family story. Blind Manor is a love story. And this is this is just what it is.
a horror story.
Yeah, it's a bit of everything.
It's a horror story. Yeah. So I agree with you. It's very strong. I can't wait for his fall, The House of Usher. I like Edgar Allan Poe stuff. I mean, growing up, I read a lot of Poe, which may actually explain why I'm the way I am. I'm a little twisted. I was a kid when I read stuff like The Cask of Amontillado and The Telltale Heart, and they both were things that I devoured as a child. Okay, early teens, I guess is what. So to see him marry his style with Edgar Allan Poe's story is going to be excellent.
Yeah, for sure.
That should be good.
All right. Yes. So I want to thank you both for agreeing to this. And now we're going to rotate through. I don't know who's going to go next, and we'll do something else. But Jesse, you got me chomping at the bit. I'd love to do Dr. Sleep with you.
Okay.
Karen, have you seen it already?
I haven't.
Oh, wow.
So I'd be a newbie.
Okay, because you'd want to watch The Shining again before the Kubrick.
Would I?
Yeah, you would.
I was going to ask, which version of The Shining, the Kubrick? Okay.
The other version would work too. Yeah, both versions would work, because the thing is, he combines elements from the book and the movie into Dr. Sleep. So because the iconography of The Shining is so strong in the public perception, that you just can't get around some of the images from the movie version. But it does incorporate elements from the King's book, which does have several differences, the Kubrick movie version. So
I guess if I have to, I'll watch it again. I hate Kubrick. You know how I am about Kubrick.
Well, you could watch the mini. No, if you remember it,
if you remember it,
then you probably don't have to rewatch it. I just don't know if Jesse's ever seen The Shining.
Yeah, I saw The Shining years ago.
So
yeah.
I've seen it. I think I've seen it 3 times.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Anyhow, but that's for another time. We'll have to decide who's going to pick next. So for our listeners out there, I hope you've enjoyed this journey. We're going to be picking what we've called side projects, smaller chunks of entertainment like these miniseries, which I think these like 7-8 miniseries are just perfect for this kind of thing. And
they are.
That's a strength of these types of shows, because you get this very strong 3-act structure or satisfying ending. And it's the highest moment of drama for all these characters as well. So, everything's heightened. So I don't know do we want to do ratings for these kind of shows, or we're just, I don't know if it's necessary, because we all enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But if you want to, I'll leave that up to you. So
thumbs up.
Any last words from anybody before we put this one to bed?
I'd like to ask any listeners, we all read, all 3 of us. I'm pretty prolific.
Yes.
Voracious.
I read my
Goodreads goal is like 52 books, which is one a week, which I feel is pretty aggressive. Karen's is
350.
Oh my God.
And I always exceed it. I've gotten over 400 3 times and just under 400 one year. So I always exceed it. Last night, just to say, it's Saturday last night, I read 3 books.
Oh my God.
So, and I could probably write a book report on all 3. That's how my mind works.
That's crazy. Yeah. For me, I'm more in the Jesse territory, but I've really dropped off ever since COVID. I don't know. I just, for some reason, reading is just, I've found it really hard to concentrate.
Yeah.
And I'm just slowly getting back into it. But then, like you said, there's just so much content out there. I'm having trouble keeping up with TV stuff.
Right.
But I really need to get back to my reading as well. But
I was going to ask if anyone is interested. I mean, let me know in the comments on YouTube or whatever. Maybe we'll pick up a book here and there and talk about it.
Okay.
Some kind of genre book.
That'd be a good idea too.
Because because we did Ocean at the End of the Lane, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, we did that together. We talked about
that.
That
Was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was very fun. I would be interested in that.
Okay.
Okay. So like we could each pick a book,
Yeah.
Right.
over the course of a year or whatever.
So Jesse and Karen, you'll have to decide between the two of you who's going to pick next.
We will.
And then we'll
I'm going to let Karen pick.
Oh, okay.
okay.
Good.
We'll mention that in one of our Babylon 5 podcasts, what we're doing next.
Okay,
so
good.
people can be on the alert for that. Plus we'll tweet it and whatnot as well.
Mhm.
So with that, I want to thank everybody, Jesse and Karen, and of course the listeners. And till next time, take care and behave.
And the podcast is ended. Go in peace to be kind to everyone.
That's right. That's right.
And also to you.
Yes.
Yes. And to you, and to you, and to you, and you. And before we sign off, I forgot social media contacts, Jesse.
Yes, I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter, and you can find me talking music on Set Listing Bruce. And we hope that you have been checking out all our work on the Babylon 5 podcast, because we are having a blast on that on this very same feed. So if you found this because you're a horror fan, I hope you check out us talking Babylon 5.
Karen?
I am at Aleveria, Aleveria, on Twitter mostly, but that's also my name on Instagram, TikTok, all this stuff. I don't post anything on TikTok, but I'm there.
What about Goodreads?
Yes, Goodreads, also Aleveria.
Okay.
So you can find me there if anyone's interested in my Goodreads information. I'm happy to. I will give you a caveat that I read a lot of romance. So be prepared for that. I feel like there's romance in every genre, by the way. So
yes, sure.
I am not ashamed of my romance loving heart.
You shouldn't be.
No.
So you can find me at Aleveria. I'm also alliestuff.com. There's a link in my bio on Twitter to that very blog.
Very good. And you can be found at Lou's Review on YouTube, where this JKL Media playlist will include this Midnight Mass series of podcasts that we've done, as well as our Babylon 5, some Stephen King stuff there, some writers interviews. And on Twitter, I'm at Lou W. Sitzmo or at Stephen King Podcast. So with that, be good, everybody. As I like to say on my Stephen King pods, stay safe, but stay scared. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
And scene.
The proceeding has been a JKL Media production.
Surely